before even getting invited to church, what was going on in life that was hard and like the struggles, just that time and just before the invite?
So I spent a lot of time in the military, deployed a lot, did a lot of different types of stuff in the military. So in my time in the military, you do a lot of bad things. You see a lot of bad things. A lot of bad things happen to good friends of yours, and you get to a point where you start questioning. Right? I was born and raised Catholic, and I was always told, thou shalt not kill, do harm. Right. So when I was in the military, I did do those things, and it made me start having doubts, and always feeling uncomfortable and judged, with God and everybody. So it was hard. So I did lose faith and trust, not in the church, but, within myself, my own questions, being able to heal and move past it.
Okay.
Was the hardest part.
Yeah. And there's a very few people in our society that can have walked in those shoes. So what then led to, obviously you're at Pine Belt. What led to the invite? Who invited you? Obviously I know, but like you tell the story about being invited.
So I do work for Pine Belt. There's a lady here who comes here. Her name's Lauren. I work with her very closely at work. And I don't know exactly how it started.
Okay.
But I guess she, saw something.
Okay.
And anytime, I was upstairs in her office talking about work stuff or, vice versa, she would always take her time to talk to me about it. Just as a friend.
Yeah.
Like she knew parts of my military background, and she saw something, she saw some pain. But she always made it an effort to talk to me about God and tell me about her church. And she always asked questions, why are you uncomfortable? Why do you have the doubt? We would spark conversations throughout the time. And then it just got to one day where it's just the walls were closing and talking to her, I said, listen, I got to try something.
Okay.
I got to say, try something before I drown. So I jumped in.
Cool. And so what were the first few weeks like? I mean, you had not been to church in a while. I don't go to Catholic church often, but from what I hear, that this is a different experience in the Catholic church.
It is.
So tell me those first few weeks.
So the first time I came here for service, I'm not going to lie, terrified. Okay. I didn't know what to expect. I'm sweating, I'm just very nervous, but
and literally sweating, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And Lauren did meet me here, for that first time. And, she kind of just said, okay, listen, we're going to sit in the back,
Okay, good.
First step,
Yep.
And, I always keep just thinking about the Catholic Church, and I'm not talking down on the Catholic Church.
No, yeah, just different. Yeah.
Anytime I went to Catholic Church, I left there more confused than when I went in.
Okay.
So the first service I was here, and I remember it just like it was yesterday. He was up there talking, the hula hoop,
cool.
expression about just leaving the past in the past. And, I was sitting right in the back corner over there, bawling my eyes out because it hit home. And that's what I definitely like about coming here is that when you're preaching, it's in a way that you can interpret to everybody's daily lives of what they're going through, emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever it be. You can interpret it your own way. To how it, fits you. And, I'll never forget that the first time I came here, the hula hoop and the suitcase and, just leaving it, you have to walk towards God. You have to, if you're going to bring the past with you, you're never looking forward. You're always looking backwards. And at that point, I did a lot of soul searching, after that one. And, it made me more comfortable coming.
Cool.
So
cool. So I saw you back there, with Lauren. I saw you coming routinely without missing a week, and quiet. There was just something about your face that, like, I'm searching. And so whether Lauren messaged me or I messaged her, or vice versa, but there was just like, hey, yeah, if you can get some coffee with this guy, and so we emailed, set up coffee, and the one thing that you had mentioned earlier in this interview, I guess you could say, was about your military past, and that to me was a connecting point in our conversation when we got coffee about like, I've never talked to somebody with that level of openness about their military past, and just thinking about how God welcomes everybody in. Like you had talked about, thou shalt not murder, and right. I was like, well, Moses, he used Moses to write that. And Moses had that in his history. David, a man after God's own heart, has that in his history. And just thinking that God welcomes you in with open arms. So going to the question of like, in that conversation, I was like, hey, here's a guy that's, you said Army Ranger, and knowing like there's that physical element to it. I was like, well, I'm going to be hiking Mount Washington. It goes above the tree line. It's not an easy hike. I'm driving up there to get my 2 smelly kids from camp, and 2 smelly boys. And I was like, hey, on a whim, do you want to drive 6 hours to New Hampshire and hike Mount Washington? So you hiked it. My question is, what about the coffee experience? What about hiking Mount Washington? What about that whole process started connecting dots for you?
I would go back to just the first time coming. After the first time coming here for service, I had questions, right? So I had questions that I kind of gave my own answer to. Okay. But it led to more questions and more questions. Yeah. So then I came back again and more questions, and those last questions, are answered. And so every time that we've met or I've come here, there's always been more questions, and I always wanted the answer. Okay. Right. So when we met for coffee, we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about, war. We talked about the Bible. And I left there with more questions. And you said something to me when we were having coffee where, and also when he was preaching, was leaving the past. And that's what I was having struggles with too. So then you invited me to Mount Washington, and I said, okay, well, let's go, and answer some more questions. Okay. And so we went and drove up there. We talked, about a bunch of different stuff, on the way up there. Yep. And when we got to that mountain, it was time to answer a lot of questions. Okay. So we get to the top. It's the top, for people that don't know, it's like the highest mountain on the Appalachian Trail. There's a train that goes to the top. You can drive a car to the top. So there's like a little cafeteria, a little gift shop. It's not what you would expect after laboring to get to the top. But we're at the top. We're in this little cafeteria. And you just said, I'm ready. So what was that? Like, what was it to get to the point where you're like, I'm ready, and to pray together to say yes to Jesus? So as we were walking up the mountain, I kept thinking about the past. And I've walked a lot of mountains with the buddies that I've lost. And as we were walking, and as we got higher and higher on the mountain, now listen, I haven't trained for Mount Washington, so I didn't think I was making it. I thought you were doing it on your own. But something kept pushing me to get to the top. And I felt it, within myself, that something kept telling me to keep going. And I kept thinking about them and losing them and survivor's guilt and, why them, why me? And I finally realized when I got to the top that could be the last mountain that we all walk together. That they wouldn't want me sitting here feeling sorry for them. So in order to let them go, I have to face forward and move forward and focus on having something bigger for myself. When I was in the military, that was a thing. Everybody thinks that, when you serve in the military, you're serving, your country, or you're serving, whatever the case be. Really, when you're in the military and you're doing that, it's for the guy to the left and the guy to the right to you. That's what it's about. It's not about anything else besides you and the guys that you're there with. So I feel truly that walking up that mountain, they were there with me, and they were pushing me to the top, and the top was, to let it go, and move on.
Cool.
And just focus on something bigger than me, something you can't see, and I found that here.